everybody sort of has to work together and get on, or you don't have a community. It's all about working together in small areas. And you're right, general stores and also hotels in rural, remote areas are the hubs of the community, for sure. Sometimes I have a conversation with people and ask them, what do they think it'd be like if there was no shops or supplies available in the valley whatsoever, just under normal circumstances and also under extreme circumstances like floods? And yeah, some of the answers are quite, a lot of them say, oh, we wouldn't live here. So if that was the case, how many people would be living out here? A lot of them look at it as a convenience of living here over travelling. There's a few people who say, oh, it's too dear, why do you shop there? But then are you going to drive to town every time you want a loaf of bread and a bottle of milk? No, the last flood was basically the way I felt at the time. It was every person for themselves, because there was no communication. When I say communication, I mean there was no phone, we had no fax, there was no FPOS machine, and because of the density of the clouds and all the rain, most of the time the satellite was down. So when it comes to a point where there's no outside world communication, and then there was the power off for a few days, in some cases Bullion had no power for, might have been 6 or 7 days. My next door neighbours further up, they didn't have it for over 10 days. They were just on generator alone. The tractor then broke down, one of the tractor pack generators, and I went up along the railway line and fixed that, got that going again. And then we went up to my place when we could get through and got the generator out of the woodshed up there. And then they had to use the tractor to start fencing as soon as the water went down. So they just used my generator until the power came on. Since then they bought one, but yeah, when the tractor broke down, they had no power for the fridges or freezers. They were sort of snookered then. Yeah.
Okay.
But in the 2010-11, we had all that outside world communication, where there was the likes of the policeman at Bullion and Frank McKee. We constantly communicated on, I learned how to do emails then, and people were emailing the orders of the supplies they needed so I could accumulate a big list and then ring my suppliers in town. And then I organised Queensland Rail, loaned me 2 of those high rails, which the vehicles that go on railway lines and on road. And they loaned me 2 of those to bring supplies out, and did 2 trips with 2 vehicles in the one day. The following day, the people from that other end could come down. By then we had all the orders already packed up, bagged up, boxed up and everything else, ready for them to come in and pick it up. It took me a couple of days to think about how I was going to deal with it, but in that time you couldn't go anywhere anyway. I used to have to leave the shop and go up on the, we'll call it the grid, about 2.5 k's out roughly, yeah, and use the mobile phone to ring my suppliers in town to organise all the stuff for when, all the supplies for when the emergency services, SES, could get out and bring it out on the boat across Nellie Simpson. So sometimes you'd have to go up there mostly twice a day, sometimes 3 times, and then usually of a night time to talk with the SES because they weren't there all the time through the day. So you talk to them at night time for the next day's delivery.
Do you think
one of the first ways you see, you might have some people who haven't got on for years. They're helping them with their fences or cattle or whatever needs to be done, and yeah, and it's all forgotten about.